Boom.
Yeah.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Who doesn't like that intro video? Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. We are happy to have you along wherever you're watching, near and far. It is Monday. It is episode number 46, and it is Inside the Game right here on the National Soccer Network. And Nathan, we were just talking about this a little bit off camera and about 43 hours worked over the last 3 days. 12 hours yesterday, 14 on Saturday and 17 on Friday. Now, the rest of the week is probably something, but 43 hours, man, over the last 3 days. So
that's crazy. Yeah, and a lot of games in that stretch too. Goodness,
only eight total games, but we were supposed to have 10. We're finding the league for clubs is this new league that we're doing, right? And we were when we agreed to terms with the league, we were under the understanding that most of these games would start in May. That's what we were kind of anticipating, and Northern Cal Conference decided to start in March. So, so we had 3 games this weekend. And so there was like this rush to not only get our studio built out for all of it, but also to get the teams and get an idea of how we're going to get feeds. So we were only able to get one of the games up this weekend. And, obviously we're working through those kinks to get a majority of the games coming up here next weekend. So it's just a process, but either way, we did games, MASL games, American Premier Soccer League game last night on the platform, did our ranking show last night. We'll talk about that this morning, and happy Monday morning. By the way, 45 MJ and age. So today's 46, Peter. Today's 46. Happy.
I think he gave us MJ last time.
I think he did too. And it is St. Patrick's Day. Now, I have some Irish in me. I do. Nathan, I think that you are like pretty darn close to a majority of you being Irish.
I have some Irish in me. I also have some IRA in me as well.
Oh,
somewhere probably
like Roth IRA or like
no, like the bad. Well, the good guys, depending on how you're looking at it.
little retirement IRA. Is that what you have there? But so let's. First off, it is St. Patrick's Day. Today is corned beef. Well, if you are a non-traditional Irish background, you will have corned beef and hash. If you are from Ireland, you will not be having. It says, it should be episode 46. That's weird. I'm gonna edit that. No, I can't edit it. I'll edit it though. It's 46. I must have made a boo-boo.
45 and a half.
Right, 45 and a half. But I recently found this out. I did not know that in Ireland that corned beef and hash is like not a thing. Like I didn't know that. Now I do. But did you know that, Nathan? That
it's Americanized, much like any other holiday. It's green beer, and all the whole traditions and. The majority of the people celebrating probably are not Irish to any extent. So that's, it's one of those things. I'm sure it's probably not the only thing they eat on this day. I'm sure corned beef is still probably a thing they have. I mean, I know that's still big and, I don't know about that, but it probably bangers and mash, I imagine would be a pretty popular thing. I don't know if you've ever had banger sausage before. That's a big thing in Ireland. Mashed potatoes, obviously, because of potatoes. So I imagine that there's probably some other traditional stuff they're having today, Irish stew, pie, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, it's Americanized a little bit, much like any other holiday is. So I think that's probably where we got the whole corned beef and hash thing. But there's still some good stuff. Let me tell you that much. I just wish I was in Chicago. I want to see that tradition before it's all said and done when they turn the river green, because I see it every year. My parents are actually down in Austin right now, and they're having a big St. Patty's Day celebration thing. So, no, there's a lot of traditional Irish foods that are eaten. I don't know, probably not, but where did you hear this?
From someone who is Irish. who grew up in
Ah,
Ireland.
okay.
And they were like, they were like, nope, that's not a thing here. I was like, oh, it's news to me because every Irish pub I walk into is usually owned by someone from Irish descent. You know what I mean? But I guess there's something to be said about being a sellout.
Yeah. And someone that lives there.
In a good way. I'm not like I mean
Right.
I mean what I mean by that is that we live in this world where I think that we come from this place where it's like well, it's not our tradition, so we're gonna do it the traditional way, and the traditional way might not actually sell you anything. You might not sell anything going traditional, so you have
Yeah.
to Americanize it. You have
Spruce it up.
to do you've got to
Yep.
give it some love, and so that's what because I mean there's a ton of Irish bars around here, right? About around by
Mhm.
me, I'm assuming like the punchki thing is probably if you go to Poland probably not a thing. You know, what I mean, like what the hell's a punchki? I mean, you mean a donut? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that I mean, I know that if you go to Italy, like how we eat our pasta here in the United States with red sauce, and no, the traditional pasta across the pond isn't going to have a red sauce on it at all. It's going to be an
Yeah.
olive oil based kind of a sauce, right? So, and you eat your pasta first and your salad last, right? So like that's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's some things there. So, but it is St. Patrick's Day. I do have some Irish in me. I grew up with the understanding and belief that I was Italian. Come to find out, I have no Italian blood whatsoever. So that was a lie. I am Irish on some level. Do not know how much, but I am Russian, Ukrainian, and a whole bunch of other stuff in there too. So I am at war with myself currently. Um,
You're
you
Russian?
know,
You never
Russian
explained this
and
to me.
well, my dad did one of those. We got for Christmas one year. My dad's like big into like the whole like knowing your past, and he always wants to share stuff with us. So I was like, this isn't going to be annoying by buying him like that 35, 365 and me, whatever that thing was, like the DNA
Oh,
test.
yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was a bad idea, because now he knows like, oh my god, I connected with a cousin who lives in Chicago who I never knew existed. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but yeah, we bought him this and he came out and was like, yeah, by the way, your grandparents are not in fact Italian, like we thought they were. I go like, wow, so
It's
Peter
weird.
goes, comrades. Peter goes, comrades. That's I I don't like vodka, so that part of me is definitely not
New.
a Russian. But yeah, one day he was like, "Yeah, by the way, you're not Italian and you have Russian, Ukrainian." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Interesting. Alright.
Um,
Yeah.
I thank
There's
God I didn't grow up in the '60s during the McCarthy era. um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I think
Yep.
it was 50s, maybe 50s. I don't know, but somewhere in that time period, right?
Yeah. Ancestry is a weird thing. We would just keep it in the past sometimes. I mean, I know I actually have Sicilian in me from my mom's side, and you can actually trace it all the way back to the Genovese family. Do you know who the Genovese family is by chance?
I do not.
So they were rivals with Al Capone,
Oh,
and they were based out of Detroit.
oh,
So my grandma has fond memories of going to like the Kentucky Derby and a lot of other, sporting events and stuff. And they would always have suites and they would always have seats at the perfect level and they would always have the nicest stuff. And she always wondered, she's like, how do they get the nicest things? Like my family came from poverty. Like they came over here without anything. How are they? Well, 2 + 2 = 4. I'm sure crime made a lot of money back then, plus all the other things they were doing. So we like to keep that in the past. It is what it is. It's, how they came over here and how they made their mark. And now we're here. But no, the whole Ireland thing is interesting because my family actually, believe it or not, took a vacation to Ireland during the last week of the minor league baseball season last year. Didn't tell me about it. Didn't want to like plan it a week later or something so that they could bring me. They just went, which was really special. But it's fun when you're over there. You can if you start talking about, oh, I'm Irish or I have Irish heritage. A lot of those people are like, okay, but you're not Irish. Like you're not from here. You know, you might have blood, but you don't know how things. You're still an American. You know, believe me, you don't know how things go over here, and it's always interesting hearing about learning a lot of the cultural things that you didn't know from Americans going over to Ireland. Like, there's that popular drink I was told the other day. Like, you know, it's the Irish car bomb.
Oh yeah.
I was told if you ever go over to Ireland, never order one of those because obviously you wouldn't go to a bar in New York and order a 911. So it's probably smart to not order an Irish car bomb if you're in Ireland. So these are little things that Americans probably
Jeez.
need to learn before going over there. But that's just it's funny. Like, American, obviously, through and through, because I was born here and all the customs and whatnot. But yes, obviously Irish blood, and yeah, I think it's worth celebrating. But you know, it's also odd to consider the fact that they had their revolution in the 19th century. Like, ours was in the late 17th century, but theirs was not that long ago. So there's a lot of history there. I got to make my way there at some point, but it'll probably be a while.
Yes, I would love to see. I don't have I don't want to travel outside the country. I don't know. I just don't have like this urge to want to travel anywhere, you know, outside of the United States. Does that sound terrible?
Maybe a little bit, given what we do. I feel like one of my bucket list items is to go see a soccer match in Spain or in the UK or in Brazil. Just one of those places, you know.
No, I get
on my
that.
list.
I get it. I just don't know if I just don't know if I want to do that. Because to be fair, I'm not a big fan of flying. I've never been a big fan of flying.
That's fair. You and me both.
You know, so that's first, and then obviously, you know, you're on a plane for however many hours. You know, flying to California is a 5-hour flight, right? And that's the longest flight I've ever been on. And then, you know, you want to go across the pond, you're looking at maybe another 3 or 4 hours. So that's one reason, and the other one is like, it's like almost like, think about this for a second, right? When you're a kid, right, and your parents are like, okay, yeah, they like, can I walk to the store? And that store might be 100 yards away, right, 200 yards away. There's something about that excitement, about, you know, that freedom, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm all by myself, or I'm all alone, right? I haven't been here before, or maybe I have been here. Like, there's like that. So there's that part of me, like, and now I'm gonna, here in the United States, I at least I have a phone call. You know, I have a friend who's only
That's
a couple
fair.
100 miles away. There you take your whole family. You're like, you know, you lose your passport. Now you're in. There's like so many potential issues that I see from being there, that just like, you know, is it worth it? I don't know. You know, and my wife will probably say, John, we're going to Italy at some point in our life. We're going to Ireland at some point. We're going to
Stay on the beaten path.
I'm not going to be backpacking.
There you go.
No backpacking. We're not staying any hostels.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. I've seen that movie. No way.
Yep.
No way will we be going to any hostels. I do not want, you know. Yeah, I know. No, thank you. No.
Yep.
But
Yep.
What a awesome movie, by the way. Have you watched Trapped yet?
Trapped.
We talked about like 2 shows in a row, man. The movie Trapped on Netflix. Have you watched it yet?
Oh, yes. I'm not all the way through it. I'm not all the way through it, but I did. I was actually mixed up. Speaking of not getting off the beaten path, in places where you shouldn't be, I've been watching some other shows as well. But yes, Trapped, I have began. I am not completely through it just yet, but yes, no, I agree with you. Like, I've seen that movie before. It's not worth getting off the beaten path. It's just simply not. But yes, started it, have not quite gotten all the way through it just yet. But I thought they casted it pretty well. But no,
I mean, maybe it's not a bad cast. I mean, Josh Hartnett hasn't really done a whole lot of stuff. To be fair, a while. It's been a minute since he's done anything.
Yeah.
The last time, L.A. Confidential, maybe was the last time not in L.A., but there's a movie with him and Harrison Ford that was back in 10 years ago. So we haven't seen him in a bit. And then a lot of the other characters are kind of unknowns. In that movie, but they did a pretty good job of telling that story. But here's what I want to do. we did the ranking show last night. Ranking show is back. Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association releases the rankings to us as part of our relationship, and then we announce those rankings live at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights. Last night was not rankings. Last night was the teams to watch. And so every Monday moving forward, we will, as part of our way of highlighting the girls' soccer game, we'll talk about the rankings a little bit here, or the teams to watch. The next show is not until April the 6th, where the actual official rankings will start to come out here. That'll be week 1. So here in Michigan, there are, again, there are 4 divisions in the state of Michigan, and we are going to be reaching out to other coaches association across the country to see if they would like us to also do this for them as well. So that will be coming soon. But we'll look at Division 4 here first. The way this works, and if you haven't seen our shows in the past, Nathan, I know you've seen them. The way it works is we do it by division. They typically do top 15 teams in each division each week. So there's 60 teams that we will highlight. There's usually honorable mentions as well. And it goes 15, through 1 through 15, then honorable mentions. And we do that throughout the entire season. And so here's a look at Division 4 teams to watch here, released last night on our show. The team that's highlighted in red is a team that actually won the state championship here in Division 4 this season. Kalamazoo Christian actually was the runner-up. The show, by the way, is presented by Just Slabbed, and we'll talk about that here more as well in the coming days. But here's a look at these 15 teams on your screen. And we do this again for each division. I'll take a look here at Division 3 is on your screen now. Grosse Ile was the runner-up in 2024. Hudsonville Unity Christian actually won the D3 state championship last year. They did it, so I think that was their 3rd consecutive year they won it. They're actually now officially in Division 2 now, so they'll be they might have a chance to go out and win the whole thing in D2. That's how good they are. Here is a look at Division 2 teams to watch. Spring Lake won the state championship in Division 2 last year, the first time in school history they ever did that. And then there's Hudsonville Unity Christian, who's made their way into the top 15 or the teams to watch in Division 2. And then a look here at Division 1. Rochester Adams won the state championship both in the boys and girls season this past year. So they are, so the girls did it in the 24 school year. The boys have done it in the 25 school year. So it'd be interesting to see if Rochester Adams can do a repeat, because then that would be kind of cool, because then they would actually officially have swept like the entire, like an entire year, which would be really cool. The OEA Red has actually won the last 3 Division 1 titles in both boys and girls soccer, which is also very interesting. So there you go. And that's a look at the teams to watch in the great state of Michigan.
You could say interesting. You could also say dominant. You could also say controlling of everything that's around them, and that they've kind of set the standard. It's where we've gotten with Adams. Is Josh Hickey still doubling up as both men's and women's head coach? Is he still doing both programs?
Yep.
So that's the craziest thing to me. Like I said, I've always kind of wanted to at least talk to him personally about how he's been able to do this. But not only that, I mean, it would be 4 straight for him on both sides. And so what's crazy is we always talk about parity in Michigan high school soccer, which there is a lot of it because we have so many different teams. But the tough part is there's a lot of parity, but we're still in this position where towards the top, you only have 2-3 teams that are going to be in the picture every single time. And Adams now has finally gotten to that point. You feel like on both sides, like they're going to get the nod to be arguably the best team on both sides because of what they've done. But 3 straight is crazy for Josh Hickey. So for him to go out and get 4 straight, I mean, just personally speaking, would be amazing. I don't know if anyone has access to website or data.
It wouldn't be 4 straight. It wouldn't be 4 straight. They won it. The girls team won it in 22.
We're sorry, 4 out of the last
5. It'd be 3 out of the last 4 as of right now. And if they won it, then it'd be 4 out of the last 5. Because Adams won it in 22. Stony Creek won it in 23. They won it in 24. The boys won it here in 24. And then they would, if they did it again, then it would be, But So first things first, it's really important to say this, especially when it comes to talent. All right. We can argue that Argentina, England, Spain, the Netherlands, Brazil, right? They win because they have talent, right? They have talent. So you have the talent. And then with that, you have a solid coaching staff. Coaching can make all the difference. There's no doubt. We know that it can make a huge difference, right, Nathan? We know that that's a thing. But talent, coaching together with history and culture create winning recipes, which in turn championships. Rochester Adams, solid coaching staff. Josh is one of the best coaches, I would argue, in the state of Michigan at the high school level. No doubt. It might be even I would even argue that at other levels as well. Very good coach. Talent. Got to have talent, right? You got players who are playing at a high level in this area, and they call home Rochester. And so he's getting blessed. And when you look at the schools who are ranked in the top 15 in Division One specifically, let's take a look at that. You've got, looking at this, you've got Rochester Adams, right? Now, if you notice down below there, you have an honorable mention, Stony Creek. All three Rochester schools are ranked or in this conversation. Stony Creek won it in 2023 with Lily Bosley, right? And so you've got to look at that. So all three Rochester schools. Then you've got Troy High. Troy High is in there right below Saline. You've got Athens down there, honorable mention. Bloomfield Hills is in there as well. You've got Clarkston. So you basically have the entire OAA red basically in this conversation. So when you are talking about that, well, why is that? It's because this area has a high level, high level players on this side of town, and they all call their homes the OAA red. And then you start getting in the middle of the state, you've got like the what do you call it? Like Ann Arbor area, which is part of the Kensington Valley. I think it's Kensington, or it was maybe SCC. I forgot what they call it over there, the southeastern. Anyways, and they got the west side of the state. You've got a bunch of conferences on the west side. So we're these high level players, a very large number of them. They call their homes in these areas, and these conferences are the beneficiaries of that, right? And so that's why you see that. And this is why we even talked about it last week about how these players are all making that choice between coming back and playing high school or going and still playing club during these seasons. And there's a reason why Rochester Adams might get players back. It's because there's a good chance they could win this thing, right? Or the Athens or the Troy Highs, right? Well, there's a chance we could win. We've got 7 players who are playing ECNL. If we brought them all back, we'd be like the number 1 team in the state of Michigan. So let's go win this thing, right? So that's a big reason why. But
well, and I'd always be interested to see what those conversations are like too. And that's something that I've mentioned to you, live on air is what do those talks look like? Because not only are you bringing kids back from the academy to come play for you and go win a state championship, because you're right. When you have banners hanging up, when you have it, maybe not banners hanging up because you're outside, but when you understand what it is and the fact that you're playing for a program or could play for a program that could go win it all, that changes everything. But it's not just bringing kids back from the academy, which again, I would like to see what those conversations were like, especially on the men's side, but it's also convincing players at the same exact time to stay and play high school as opposed to doing the other thing and going off and playing for club. Now, I'm not here to say that maybe there aren't some clubs that can work out an arrangement to where you're allowed to do both. I'm sure, as you mentioned, there are many that would prefer that you don't even do such a thing. But that's where it's hard for me, because when you're working with a talent pool that's as deep as it is in Rochester, Michigan, you have to worry about the other side too, which is kids going out and playing club and going to academies and doing these different things and not playing the high school season, because that can be a pretty strict line in the sand. But what Josh Hickey has done, and again, this is when coaches talk about culture, because that's one of those catchwords I feel like every coach wants to talk about. And it doesn't really make sense sometimes because every coach talks about it, but yet the coach who has, X amount of wins and is winning championships talks about culture, whereas the coach that's last place also talks about culture, right? So it's like, okay, well, what is it? It's tough to grasp. Culture is being able to manage people And that's what Josh Hickey has done. He's managed his people the way that he's needed to in order to keep them together, create a culture that's conducive to winning. Not only that, but keep these kids from jumping ship and saying, hey, talent-wise, you could argue there were a few players on that Rochester Adams men's team that probably could have, not probably, maybe were a step or two above the competition they were playing. But they came back for love of school, for love of teammate, for love of Adams, wanting to go win another state championship. That's
No,
something
I
that
don't
was
know if
special to
that's.
me.
See, I don't.
You don't think they
dispute that
came
that's
back to
gonna.
win a state championship?
No, they came back to win a state championship, but that's to be fair. To be fair, it's the same. It's the same reason we talked about this on Friday, right? There's a level of as a player growing up. I wanted to play nothing more than play for my high school, right? So nothing more than that, right? And at that time, there wasn't a choice. Like there wasn't like I could go and play club. Club ended, and then I went and played soccer for my high school. Now club is still going. Okay. So you're being given an opportunity. You're given a choice. Do you honor a commitment that you have for your club, or do you go play for your high school? So for me, which really sucks, and I wish that the youth environment would change this so that players wouldn't have to do this. But to be fair, it becomes more of a selfish decision than it is. You know what I mean? Right? Because let's be honest. If a player is playing club soccer at the ECNL level, MLS next, what are they trying to do? They're not there for fun. They're there to get to a college scholarship. They're there to get to the highest level in the sport, right? Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you did that. You signed your letter of intent. You're committed to a school, right? Now you're going to go and play high school soccer, go play for your high school team, go win a state championship. Does any of that sound like selflessness to you or being selfish? And I'm not trying to say players are being like these, they're a bunch of selfish, whatever. But like, if they didn't have the college commitment, would they be playing in the environment in the first place? Probably not. Right? Alex Rosine, great kid. Love that kid. I'm not saying that he's I'm just saying look at this for what it is. He's signed up Notre Dame, Division I college. He comes back. He's arguably the best player in the state of Michigan, goes and plays for his team. Why does he want that? Now, we can argue he wants a state championship, but if he wasn't already committed, would he have come back? So I don't, maybe selfish is the wrong word to use, but like if, here I am, I have a choice. I before, my choice is I have to stay with the club to be seen, go to ID camps, be seen, get my opportunity, get offered, sign letter of commitment. Okay, take a deep breath. Oh, now what do I want to do? I want to go win a state championship. But if he doesn't have that, so all the players out there who are currently not committed to college, are they going to go back and play for their high school where they might not have that same opportunity to be seen? So I don't know if the word selfish is the right word to describe it. And maybe that comes off on a negative side. So I don't want it to be like that. But let's be honest. If you're not signed and committed, you're not going back. Mm-hmm. Because why are you, there's no way. I mean, if your mom and daddy's paying, again, MLS Next, you don't pay. I think in MLS Next, it's like you'd saying, you're just paying for the travel. But in every other environment, not every MLS Next program, but a large majority of them, you're not paying. But you're investing all this time and money. I mean, so mom and dad, like, you're going to go play high school when we just put $25,000 this year, and you're no, And again, I don't know what the right word is to describe it. And it may be selfish, like I said, is the wrong word to use, but what else would you call that?
There was a player at Caledonia I remember covering, forgot what her name was, but she was in the same situation. She played club. But for some odd reason, and I don't remember what exactly, the deal was or what they came down to, but the club that she was in allowed her, somewhere in that contract, allowed her to come back and play high school soccer. Now, I don't know if that's something that clubs are beginning to relax on. You talked about you'd like to see that change in the soccer game, and I'm sure that there's probably some level of feeling like they should have some safeguards in place to be able to accommodate that, because there are going to be players that, especially when they get, because this particular individual was into her last year, her senior year. So I think it's easier when you have multiple years ahead of you to justify, okay, I don't have to play with them. I see them every day. We're all still friends. We're all still in the same classrooms, whatever. But, I have all these years where I have to develop myself. But once you get to your senior year, like, truth is, if you're not good enough at that point to be receiving college offers to go play somewhere, exactly how much further are you going to get? I mean, that's the other side too. So I think that, once you get to that final year, I think there are a lot of clubs that are starting to realize, like, this is happening more and more. So it is probably in our best interest, maybe, to have something in place to where we'd be able to accommodate for that if and when that happens. Because I know that they were able to make it work for her. So I know that's just one isolated example. So obviously I can't make a statement about the whole thing just off of one example. But maybe that's where they're getting right now. Is we have to try to at least adjust or tweak this thing a little bit, so we can give people the option to, hey, if you want to go back and play your final year of high school, that's fine, and still be able to honor this commitment. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if it's in different seasons for women's soccer or what the deal is there, but or maybe just a hiatus.
Yeah, I don't. There's not a simple fix to this. And it's not just like youth or club or these high level leagues that have to make these changes. It's going to have to be like the governing body for like the MHSA, for example. Again, when you give a player a choice, and they have to make a choice, right? You can do this or you can do that, but you can't do both. Like, I remember my parents came to me when I was like 13. They're like, John, you're very good at baseball. You're very good at soccer. And you can play travel in both. I could play travel in both. But you have to make a choice. We cannot continue down this path. You have to either choose baseball or choose soccer. Now, I had to choose soccer, right? And and because I love soccer, I love baseball just as much, but I felt that my trajectory was I was better suited for soccer. And that was just my perspective. And I don't look back on that any regret, not any level. I had to make this choice. But these are the choices players have to make. Do you want to play? Hey, if you're going to go try out for EC, again, this is why I think it's important that parents are having these conversations with their children. Okay, all right, you play in your club team, whatever, playing RAL or whatever, just, it's a high level, but not the highest level. Do you want to go try out for, MLS next, ECNL? Do you want to go try out? Yes, I do. Okay, what if you make it, what's the plan? What's the plan? Are you trying to get to college? Are you trying to do this? Right. Because if you're in those environments, you're even though I don't understand why MLS Next is pushing players to the college level, I still find that to be weird. I go, the MLS is a professional league. So wouldn't you just want players just to feed right into your programs at the professional level and just not send them to college? I feel like that kind of goes against the whole thing in the first place. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But what are we doing? Like, so if the players don't know what they're doing and the parents don't know what they're doing, then that means that no one else knows what they're doing either. But the goal is to get to the highest level. The goal is to continue to rise. So if you're playing recreational, you want to go try out for a club team, make a club team. If you're playing club, then you would want to get to the highest level within that club, the A team, the whatever. And then if that's the ECNL, then if it's this, if it's that, then those are all things that you can go to. We have a comment coming in. I continue to find myself flopping back and forth on this issue. Growing the game is the best way possible and try to develop the best players in MLS next ECNL club path. Play for your school, play with your friends. It's great, Steve. Oh, by the way, Steve, man, happy birthday. I didn't reach out to you the other day, man. I got caught up and I had to happy birthday. He had a baby shower. He's expecting his first child. So him and Chelsea are expecting a lot of exciting news. So, congratulations to you, man.
Congrats.
Hopefully, in one of those packages, they delivered an Xbox to you.
Cheers.
But yeah, so awesome as Peter comes in with happy birthday, Steve. So again, and it's one of those things where you should always do what's best for you as an individual. And that means that sometimes there's sacrifices that have to be made that, are going to impact other people. And that doesn't make you selfish. That makes you driven. That makes you committed to what you're trying to accomplish. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the part where I struggle with this is that you go through this path and okay, so you're driving down this highway, and this highway is the destination is college, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff along the way that's going to be a distraction, trainings, things like that. You get there. You've hit your destination. You've got the college thing locked and loaded. So now you're going to detour off the path and go do something else because you can. You know what I mean? But if you weren't at the destination, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't detour. But because you've gotten there, you can. You know what I mean? So just because you can, should you? Like that's the conversation. Right? And Dan and I were talking about this last week. What it's done for the other player, though. And this is where it's going to hurt. And this is what we don't talk about. For every 4 or 5 players that come back to a team every year that play these things, that are signed and committed to college, there are 25 other kids who've been there this entire time. And now those kids are going to lose their spots because this kid can and is locked up. Why? Because we can go win a championship now. So what you were telling the other kids who were there for the last 3 years, who have put all the work in, all the time in, what you just told them is that they're not good enough and that these players can do better. Just because you can.
Isn't that life, though?
And again, yes, but at the same time, you're talking about a culture, right? You're talking about a high school culture where, again, it is an extension of the classroom. I had to have this conversation all the time with parents. What you did in class, what you did in your community, all those things could have an impact on how you play and what you do on the field.
Right.
This isn't collegiate athletics. This isn't where money is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
This is high school. So you've got players who are working their tail off for you, proving themselves, maybe not the best players on planet Earth. And here we have are these superstars coming back in, injecting themselves into this environment, and they're going to go have success. And while these players maybe on surface level are like, yeah, this is great. We're going to go win a championship. I get a ring now. Great. Whoo, yay. And they're excited. But then there's a pie like, well, I'm not playing now. I'm not going to make the team. I'm going to get cut. I'm missing out now when otherwise they wouldn't. So it's got to change. This is not college. This is not pro. And if we treat it like that, then just start paying high school players too, then I guess. I mean, like that's maybe where it needs to go. Because why are we doing this? Is it fair? Is it fair for those players? No, and life is not fair. I've said that. Life's not fair. I get it. It's not fair. But we are educators. We're coaches, right? We're people. We're moms. We're dads. We're brothers. We're sisters. I mean, like these kids who have been working in these environments are getting screwed. And is it fair? And I asked the kid, I'll put this out to these kids. Is it right? Not fair. Is it right that players are coming in their senior year to go help you win a state championship when you've already been there? And is it fair? Is it right? Not fair. Is it right? Is it the right thing to do? Should coaches be seeking out these players in the first place? Is that the wrong message? Yeah. I'm curious what people's thoughts are on this. I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the last episode we had, there was a point that was made. I know we were talking about the college game. I'll say this initially. I think there is a trickle-down effect when we talk about what's happening in the college ranks. Listen, unfortunately, money has just become a big part of it. And also, recruiting in high school athletics happens just as much as it does at any other level. And I think the point was made last time that we were talking about this. Like, it's not a coach's job to promise anyone anything, to promise them a horse and 5 acres of land. That's not a coach's job. A coach's job is to go out and win games. And the other side of it, too, is because that coach's job is always on the line, and there's always opportunities to move up, too. Sometimes I think that we forget that coaches themselves, there are incentives behind going out and winning games. So NIL for high school athletes, maybe a real untapped market. Hey, give them some money now, because once we get into college, it'll evaporate very quickly. So no, I mean, heck, some of the kids that Bryce Underwood's technically a high school kid. He's 1 year removed. He has $12 million. Probably not $12 million when you think taxes and lawyer fees, or not lawyer fees, agent fees and all this other stuff. So no, I don't I don't agree with having to pay them. But, the coach's job, as we talked about during that last episode, talking about NIL and the college game, is to go out and win games. So how is he going to do that? Well, why look anywhere else outside of our own high school when we already have kids that are inside of our high school who are already good enough to go out and make an impact, but they're playing club or academy or somewhere else? I mean, it's almost like the opposite of, slimy. Because when you look at, football programs like, Bellevue and, some of the Catholic schools, they go to the ends of the earth. They'll go pick a kid out of, Ottawa Hills and in Grand Rapids and give them a promise of, in financial assistance and all these other things. I've seen that happen before. I've had people I know that have had their positions or whatever replaced because there was a kid that transferred in, or there was a kid that they grabbed and they put on the field. And I'm not just going to say, hey, tough luck, because I also think recruiting at the high school level is cruddy too. I don't think it's right, and especially when you look at a lot of these programs that simply can't. It's the same struggle at the high school level as it is a lot of times at the college level. Like, I think of Central Montcalm. They've had some really good players that have come out of that school. They don't stay there for long, or if you're a kid that goes to Muskegon Reese Puffer, if you're talented, you're not going to stay there for long. I'm sorry. You have Mona Shores, you have Muskegon Catholic, you have Muskegon itself. So that element of high school sports, I think, again, it's the trickle-down effect from what we see at the college level. The question of is it fair? I don't think it's necessarily fair. It is life, as I just mentioned a moment ago. It is life. It happens. But no, I don't think it's necessarily fair. But I do agree with you on the other side, JT. I think it's the clubs themselves that have to figure out how to manage this better, because I don't think it's fair, but again, I'm not quite sure what to do about it from there.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's not something that can be solved on this show, but I think it's
Right.
I think when we talk about, like, again, I can tell you with 100% certainty that the players that are coming back would not be coming back if they were signed. They would. And then there's that argument about, okay, well, then all these different awards that are given to high school players, right? Now, every year we've had this conversation. Is it right that a player who did not play their entire high school season comes in their senior year, has an unbelievable year because they're obviously one of the best players in the state? Should they be granted an opportunity to win the coveted, Player of the Year award at the high school level? Should there be some, like, hey, you have to have at least played high school soccer for a couple of years? Should there be some things like that? Again, it's a high school award.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that have different opinions about this, just like there's an opinion about whether or not you should be using a straw right now to drink out of your glass. There's that opinion too coming in from Peter. But there's
why don't
all
we
these different
scout the high
opinions.
school game heavier though? I mean, I know that there's this true belief that the talent in the United States just doesn't exist in the high school game, at least not the talent that you can promote to the next level. Why isn't that a push though, JT? That's the other side of it. And I remember talking to you, earlier about it. You're like, oh well, they're not looking at the high school game. They're looking at all these leagues when it comes to identifying talent.
Again, here's the thing: we live in 2025. So in 2000, when Steve Besk and I were going to high school, this is where you would be scouted. And now they create these ID camps. And to be fair, a lot of college coaches, they go to these showcase tournaments, right? They send the recruiters there, and then now the real popular thing is to hold an ID camp. So every college on earth now is holding their own camp, where now the player is coming to them, and so that makes things a lot easier to see them. The strong players in today's world will be seen anywhere. I firmly believe that. If you are a very good player, the world's going to know about it. Whether you're playing at the highest level in club or not, if you are dominating the high school game at a high level, then you will have a chance to go play collegiately. I don't have a doubt.
So then,
in my
why
mind.
are
Now,
people leaving in squads to go play club and academy just to up their chances of getting recognized?
Well, so again, not all colleges are created equal, right? So when I say collegiately, that doesn't mean that again, we could argue like what player makes their way to University of North Carolina on girls' side, right? Is that player on the girls' side? Are they playing high school? Or are they playing ECNL, right? Where is that player coming from, right? If I look at like Olivia Thompson, for example, who grew University Woods, Grosse Pointe University Woods Liggett, played for the Hawks, right? So she again, very good player, played for the Hawks and played for University of Liggett. I would imagine showcase tournaments, what she did for the Hawks, went to, to ID camps, got herself in front of Hans Dorrance, right, at UNC, and that, whatever. Again, I'd have to really kind of study her path to know how that went down. The girls' game is vastly different than that, the boys' game. If you want to be seen today as a high school, an MB seen in a high level, being in the MLS Next programs, the Boys Academy, right, ECNL, and being in these ID camps, showcase tournaments, that's really going to be to get to the highest level, like the Western Michigans of the world, right, and Michigans and Big Ten and Power 5 schools, right, and at the same time, Peter's making a great point here. He's like, but no high school is created equal also, and it's true. There are a lot of coaches out there that will do a lot of recruitment for you. They'll be contacting coaches for you on your behalf, sending game film, right? There's not a formula that's like a winning formula that I think is going to fit every single player like consistently. It's going to be unique to each player. So social media, how you also go out to the world and showcase yourself on social media. Like Lily Jekyll, for example, a great example of that. Lily Jekyll here locally, a national player. I mean, arguably one of the best players in the state of Michigan at her age, even for a little, maybe even older. Great player. She should be Power 5 school, University of North Carolina. Like, that's the kind of player she is, right? Notre Dame, right? Michigan State. She should be playing in a uniform. She will have the pick of the litter, so to speak, to what colleges she'll want to go to. That's how good she is. Now, other players who are also playing at these same levels, well, again, Notre Dame is not the same as University of Illinois, whatever, or like SIUE, right? They're not the same. Division I schools, not the same. Oakland University, not the same as Michigan, right? Western Michigan, I would argue, is actually better than Michigan State, but they are still in a lesser than conference. They're not in a Power 5 conference. So there's this thing about that. Now, Western on the men's side have done a better job of kind of putting themselves in a position where you can have that kind of conversation. But there's still something to be said about being in a mid-major conference. You know what I mean? Look at Akron. Akron on the men's side was in the MAC. I think, again, now they're in that Missouri Valley, or I don't know what conference they're in now. But Akron had won some national championship. But Akron is in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And they've been able to find a way to be extremely relevant. When you start talking about how relevant they are, they're not as relevant as Indiana, but you could have a conversation about Akron, because they've won national championships, at least one. Maybe I have two. And you could argue about that. Western Michigan, again, another mid-major. So, and in soccer, it's a lot easier for mid-majors to kind of have that, I think, that rise into the conversation than maybe other sports. Like, you're not going to have that conversation about, like, Bowling Green football in the conversation with Alabama. Like, you're not going to do that, right? But you could do that with an Indiana and Akron, Western. You can start having those kind of conversations. But when we go back to the player for a second, the player is trying to get to the highest level, and the highest level to them could be a number of factors. It could be the type of program, it could be the education component to it as well, right? But their goal is to get to college and to play college. And once you've done that, once you've signed that, then it becomes okay. Well, now it's okay getting prepared for college. Is the high school game going to prepare you for college? Is the level of training? Now you again argue this out, right? We just heard it from Peter. High schools are not all the same. Coaching is vastly different, right? And traditionally, in today's world, because of the way high schools pay, it's probably going to be a lesser than coach than that might be coaching at a high level at like your ECNL, your boys academies, your MLS Next is. So you might get an educator who's been doing it for 25 years, who's had some success. You might get a coach like a Josh Hickey, who's got I think is either his B or C license. I mean, Danny Price at Marion has a professional, his USSF A license. That's the highest license you can get in the country, in the state, in the United States. I mean, but you get on the way and okay, so Jason Clark at Troy Athens, I don't think that he has that kind of a license. So every coach comes from a varying different background of trainings, and not that licenses mean anything, but They do show that you have tried to educate yourself and learn and become better at your craft. So does that coach prepare you for the college environment? I would probably argue that on a consistently, probably not, right? So if you go back to your high school, are you going to get the same coaching you would be at your club? Probably not. And most of your college coaches will say, do not go back to club. Don't do it. I mean, Ons Doran shut down Olivia Thomas. Shut her down. Said, you can't play. Don't play high school soccer anymore. You're done. And she stopped. We talked about that on the last show.
Mm-hmm.
So why is he doing that? Because he realizes that in that environment, the player that she's playing up against, probably not the best player. There's a talent gap. And they're likely to really getting hurt because some player haphazardly runs into her or whatever is higher in that environment than in another environment where the players are all kind of in the same level. Even if you're a step ahead of them, they're all high level players. So they understand the game. They're in control of their body. Right. So there's that. So I think that your club coaches and your college coaches don't want players anywhere near high school because of that reason. But then there's a component of, oh my God, I want to wear my team, my community's colors, and I want to go play in front of my home crowd and go win some games. Because to be fair, these club environments, you're playing in front of like 30 people. In a high school environment, you're playing in front of 500, 1,000 people. Lights on, national anthems, things that you don't get in these environments that you do get in high school. So the environment is worth it, no doubt. But
and I'm not saying that everyone's created equally, but here, basketball has a system where AAU in the high school game are concurrent in terms of participation. Now, there are other places in the United States where, you can't do both. I think California is one of those places that has started to maybe more or less kind of crack down on that. And let's be honest with ourselves. Like, if we look at this 5-10 years down the line, it probably will be that way anyways. It's already kind of trending that direction. And honestly, there are some places in the U.S. where, people just feel like the athletes themselves are kind of hindered based off of the rules, based off of the competition. I mean, Devin Booker's probably my greatest example of this. I mean, he's from the Grand Rapids area, went to Granville, and then obviously his family moved down to Missouri. But ever since, like, every time you see Devin Booker out and about, he's always wearing some sort of Detroit, some sort of Michigan gear. You can tell that he misses, and he has a summer home, I think, up in Traverse City or Leelanau Peninsula, one of those areas. So he's a Michigan guy through and through. But they left. I think it was mostly because of dad, got a new position or whatever. But that there are a lot of places in the U.S. where the high school game, even in basketball, is kind of, you're not really going to get anywhere if you're not playing with a shot clock, if you're not playing against the best talent. When you have coaches do slimy things just to win games, but high school ball to a lot of people means a lot of things. And I think, to be honest with you, I think they would love to play with their friends every year. I think sometimes when they, go to these levels and do these things, you're right, JT, it's to get the opportunity to go play at the highest level. And who's going to turn that down? I mean, that opens up more doors everywhere, all over the place, if you play in college. And not necessarily just playing the game itself. You think about how many former athletes have gone into coaching, have gone into scouting, who have gotten other jobs inside of the university and around the program when they graduate, even if they don't go on to play professionally. That opens up a million doors. I'm just curious as to why maybe the soccer game can't create a system much like kind of how basketball is, where you can have concurrent participation. And it's because they play at the same exact time. But when did that change happen? Why isn't that we can't make it to where it's possible to where when you're playing club versus playing high school, we can have this in different seasons? That's the part that I guess that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, well, it's weather, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
I guess
it's weather.
Yeah.
It's weather, and this system was created to create the next professional player. That's why the academy was created. Now, we can argue about it being a pathway to college.
To take players away from high school programs, though?
Yeah. Because development in this country is the fundamental issue. It's fundamental. Granted, when I was playing, your dad's, where your teacher was your coach. Right now, coaches are coaches.
Yeah.
Right. And again, in the vast majority of high schools around this country, I can't speak to, I know in the OAA, we've got coaches from varying degree. They coach club. You've got coaches all around this country, the varying degrees, right? What do you have in the ECNL? What do you have? If you look at locally, right? Who are the coaches who are coaching at these levels at the ECNL, the MLS Next? They are your top coaches. They are the best of the best coaches at each club. You want the best players? You want the best coaches. Best coaches are coaching your players. You can't say that the best coaches are coaching high school players. So long ago, club soccer, U.S. soccer all came together and said, in order to improve player development in this country, we have to have a system that cultivates a foundation of training players for the next level. And the academy was created, a full year-round program where 10 months a year you're playing, you're training. The academies are and those environments are designed for training. They are not designed for playing. Now, playing is a byproduct of the training. You have to go out there and measure your players. But training it's all about training. It's training, training, training. Train, 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 keep training, get personal training. Here's team training, personal. It's all about training. And everyone's doing the same thing. So it's you can measure that. You can measure how good a player is and how they're developing, all the technology that goes with it, all the recordings, all of it, right? All of that is a real thing. And so that's why it was developed. Weather's a component of it, but in other states, like in the country, like in like Florida, for example, they don't practice or they don't play. I think during the wintertime there, because the rest of the year it's warm and whatever. So they take a break, and that's when high school seasons kind of kick off. And they kick off like October, and they go until like right now, and then they're done, or February. But it was about development. If your players are playing in high school, they're going from a club environment to another environment where maybe the coach is telling them a different thing. Maybe the coach is putting them in a different position. They're getting in a different position. I had a player come to me and they're like, "I'm a forward, coach." "Nope, you're a defender. We're putting you a defender." "Nope, you're a defender. Right. We're going to defender." "No, coach, I'm a forward." "No, well, you're really not a forward. You're a defender." But if it's about development, develop them, right? And to be fair, Olivia Thompson, while you look at the coach at Liggett, I believe it's David Duehi is the coach at Liggett, I believe. Great coach. Detroit City FC works in their realm as well. The coaching is not going to drop off for Olivia Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
But if she went to another school, what is that coach going to teach her? What is that coach going to? How is he going to develop her? Or what is he going to get from her? What is she going to get? So there's that component to this. And that's again, I can't speak to basketball because I'm not coming from the basketball world, but I would imagine that's very similar in the basketball world. Your AAU coaches are probably, a lot of them are very good, well
trained. That puts the emphasis on college coaches to know what position to put them in.
What's that?
Doesn't it? Like once you get them, if they're a product that maybe they did this thing or that thing and in high school they don't fit.
I'm not
going to
argue
position.
that versatility is a big deal. I'm not going to argue that. But again, most of your forwards are forwards. They could slide into midfield. Most of your defenders are defenders. Can they slide into a holding mid position? Probably. A center back could probably slide into a holding mid, right? But your center back's not going to be an ACM, not going to be an attacking center mid. Your center back is typically not going to be a striker. Now, granted, we saw that with Zach Townsend. Here this past season with Oakland, he went from a forward to a defender. Very hard learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that before. Yeah, versatility is a big deal. Being a left wing back, you could go slide into a left midfielder. You could slide into right. You could do that, but college coaches are gonna look at players and say, okay, I think this player could be here, right?
Yeah.
But traditionally, a midfielder is going to stay within the midfield realm. Defenders will stay in defender realm, and forwards will stay in forwards realm. It's traditionally, and there's going to be nuances to that. If a player is really talented and versatile and is smart, you can put him anywhere. But that, I don't know if that, when you start talking about the level of play, MLS Next, ECNL, Boys Academy, like Girls Academy, like you talk about all that, the coaches there are learning all of this from MLS and the highest levels in this country. You can't say the same thing for the high school coach. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily getting that same thing. So it's
Sure.
it's about training. It's about development, and there's a reason why players are there and not a high school. Vast majority who are going off and getting these college scholarships are playing at a high level in MLS Next, ECNL. They think of that, and that not always, because they don't necessarily have the money aspect of this or whatever else. So then the players will find their way into the high school program, and they'll still find a way to college. But would they have gotten themselves maybe to a Big Ten school or to a Power 5 school, versus the Division II whatever school, right? Would they have maybe gotten a better opportunity?
Right.
I mean, I can't. I'm going to go with maybe. But I think because again, I still believe that cream rises to the top, and if you're a really good player, you'll find your way.
Yeah.
But that's it. But either way, that's a wrap here on our Monday morning show, episode number 46. We hope that you enjoyed this. As always, we'll be back here tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on the National Soccer Network and Inside the Game. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. Be back here tomorrow for episode number 47.
Peace.
This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.